Hello, and welcome to
Conway's Kitchen is some finger licking. It's an easy way to cook.
What is up, y'all? Welcome to Conway's Kitchen. Today, I want to talk about kitchen basics. What are the pots and pans and utensils and things you need to get your kitchen started? I'm going to show you the simple things I have here that help me cook 99% of my meals. There's a lot of stuff online, a lot of people trying to sell you stuff. $50 cutting boards, $200 knives. Is it really all worth it? Probably not. Probably not, right? Basic stuff here. Just going to show you what I have that helps me cook most of my meals, helps you save some money on your end. If you're new to cooking, it can seem really daunting to spend hundreds of dollars to buy all this stuff for something that you might not really be interested in doing long term. So I'm just going to show you some stuff that you can buy up front, pretty cheap, pretty easy, and then from there you can figure out if you actually like cooking and want to move forward from there. Let's check it out. Alright, y'all, this is it. This is everything that I think is pretty important for a beginner kitchen setup here. It's about $120 worth of items here. We got some pots and pans over here, some utensils, cutting board, oven mitt, some Tupperwares, some measuring cups. I'm going to go in and talk about the specifics of all these. Starting off with the pots and pans here. Baking sheet, pretty necessary for anything that's going to go in the oven. So you probably want to pick one of these up. They're kind of hard to find used, and a lot of times they're pretty cakey and burnt and pretty worn in, similar to this one here. So a lot of times you can find them new for $10 to $15, but you want to pick up a baking sheet for anything that's going to go into the oven. Next, we got a pot here. Sizes can vary. I picked up a little bit of a bigger pot because I was starting to make soups and stuff like that. But pot and a lid here, heating up water, cooking down rice, making your soups, starting different sauces. You're going to want to have a pot with a lid on it, pretty key. I use a cast iron skillet for most of my sauteing. The biggest reason for that is I, for a long time, continued to buy pans that looked like this with this sort of like non-stick bottom, but I found that, through cooking every day, after, maybe even less than a year sometimes, a lot of times the bottom, that non-stick stuff would start to come up, and I just couldn't get past this feeling that I was somehow eating my pans, and I didn't like that feeling. I thought, I don't really want whatever chemicals are in the non-stick element to be incorporated into my food, so I really wanted to find something that was going to be a bit more reliable long-term. So that's when I sort of came across the cast iron skillets. Can be more of an investment up front, and the way you take care of them and wash them is a little bit different than a standard pan like that, but I found they're a little bit more reliable long term. I've had this one for about 4 years now, and it's looking a little dirty right now because I cooked on it, but you can do a couple things with some hot water and some oil to sort of bring it back to life, if you will. So I like a cast iron skillet. They've come down in cost a lot in recent years, so if you go to Target, that's where I get a lot of these things. If you go to Target, in their cooking section, you can probably pick one up for $20 to $40, depending on what size you get. So I think these are a really good investment. But I do like having the non-stick around. I got this little one just for a single egg, just a single fried egg, and that served me well for most of what I was doing. This is really nice if you're doing some scrambled eggs. Also, sometimes you need an extra saute thing. Maybe you're cooking down, your meats or something else over here, and you want to keep some veggies or something separate from that. Having two things to be able to saute simultaneously, pretty important. And because I use this one for the most part and this one more sparingly, I'm able to sort of keep this fresher for longer, and I don't wear through a pan every single year like I used to, because my skillet is the main thing that I use to saute everything. Focusing in more on the skillet and the non-stick pan and sort of some of the differences you could expect while cooking. This thing is, solid iron. It's really heavy. So first off, the handles a lot of times don't have this thing. So if you're ever handling one of these and you're cooking with it, you're going to want to hold one of these because this handle's going to get hot as shit. Second thing, this, because it's solid iron, this is an electric stove top. It takes a long time to heat up, but once it heats up, it continues to stay hot in a much smoother and more consistent fashion. These can oftentimes jump around with their heat, especially on an electric stove, and sometimes it's a little hot, a little hotter than you want, or you got to keep adjusting the heat, which while you're cooking you really don't want to turn your knobs a whole lot. You kind of want to set it to the heat you want and keep it there for the most part. You don't want to be adjusting as you go. And there's certain tips you can use to sort of counterbalance the heat by adding water or veggie broth or something like that, and that'll kind of help cool or heat up food as you need. But realistically, just goes to show, or ultimately just goes to show that these things are going to cook a little bit different here. This is sort of like I think the idea is like it's like an indoor grill top in a way. So it can bring out different elements of food in terms of the flavors and stuff that you get out of it. These will cook, if you saute broccoli here and you saute broccoli here, they're going to taste a little different. It's not a huge taste. I mostly bought the skillet for the reliability, but these are really nice to have around as well. And easy to clean, but also these can be pretty sensitive. You don't want to put a lot of like metal utensils in here. Like you don't want to like whisk your eggs with a fork inside your pan, or else you're going to scrape up the bottom here. This one is a bit hardier. You can do more to it. You can put it in the oven if you want. I've put like pasta and stuff in here, like eggplant parmesan, and put it into the oven. So these are oven safe. Also, if you like camping, they're camping safe. You can bring this and you can just put it on top of a fire. So skillet, I think, is a little bit more versatile, a little more well-rounded, and a little bit more stable in the long run. So I tend to use a skillet, but it's nice to have the non-stick around, mostly for me, for eggs. Might seem a little self-explanatory, but things that are going to be super necessary for a kitchen: oven mitt, take hot things out of the oven, move your skillet around. If you're handling anything hot, you want one, maybe potentially even two of these. The other thing you want to have around is a hand towel here. Helps clean up your messes, so you don't have to use paper towels for everything. Helps dry your hands a little bit. Basically, you want to have one of these things around. It can double as an oven mitt, but it's just a good like multi-use tool to have around. So oven mitt, hand towels, usually just a couple bucks a piece. Good things to pick up. Focusing in on the cutting board here. There's a lot of different things with cutting boards. There's wood cutting boards, there's plastic cutting boards. I'm not really going to go into the pros and cons of any of these. I found this at my local Kroger store for $3. It's small, which makes dishes a lot easier. I do have a large one here, much bigger, but I hate it. I never use this thing anymore because it's just too big for what I'm doing. It's too much of a hassle to clean up. It's heavy. I don't like it. I found this for $3 and I've used it ever since. You can see it's a little stained. It's gonna happen. It's pretty well used now at this point. You get your little like cut marks in there from your knives and stuff like that, but it was $3. It's small. It does what I need it to do, so if you're not sure if you need a cutting board or invested in something like that, just pick up a $3 cutting board and then you have one. Even though it's really small and you might feel like you're chopping a lot of things and you want like a big cutting board, I found that I like to just keep the small cutting board and have a couple bowls or anything on hand, so when I'm done cutting up a bunch of onions, I'll just drop them into the bowl and then just keep cutting, and maybe I'll just reuse that bowl to eat with later, so it's a way to kind of cut down on dishes that way. Focusing in on knives, there's a lot of different types of knives. There's knife sets. If you're looking to just keep it super bare bones, super minimal, you just want one knife. Kind of looks like this. Just long blade, thick blade, and this costs about, I think, $20 at Target, so not a super fancy blade. And what you want to do, because these will get dull, and instead of buying a new knife every year that costs $20, $30, $40, $50 every single year, what you want to do is you want to buy something that kind of looks like this. And this is a knife sharpener. And you'll also see knife sharpeners that are basically big, long steel wands. Those, you sort of have to do a certain technique with them to actually fully work. I've seen these around a lot. I think they're maybe a little bit simpler. They sort of just have like a 1 and a 2, and you kind of just like drag the knife through it a couple times, and then you do it for the other one. So it's a really easy way to sharpen your knives, but ultimately, if you buy a knife, especially if you buy a cheap knife, actually no, whatever knife you want to buy, you want to keep it sharp. It's gonna be safer to have a sharper knife. It's gonna last a lot longer. It's gonna be easier to cut your food. So to keep it sharp, you want to have a sharpener. These can be a little expensive up front. It might be the same price as this $20 knife. Like this might cost you $20, but having this, you don't have to buy a new knife every single year when this gets dull. So knife, basic little knife like this, and then your sharpener to go along with it. And so that knife-wise, that'll be enough. You don't need the paring knife. You don't need all these different fancy knives. Something like this, take care of 99% of your needs. Some basic utensils here to go along with your knife. A lot of these things you can find at something like a Dollar Tree or something like that. I will say though, a lot of times if you find a spatula or anything like that at the Dollar Tree, it's going to be like a really hard plastic that might be kind of damaging to some of your pots and pans. So if you have the ability to splurge, spend a couple more dollars, it's going to be worth it to find something that has a bit more give to it, maybe some metal components so it's not just one hard piece of plastic throughout. But basically, you got a little spatula here. Good for moving things around your saute, good for flipping things over, stirring things around. I use this probably more than anything else, realistically. This is probably my go-to tool. Nothing fancy, just rubber on both ends, a little bit of metal here. This one I think is actually technically broken, but it still works all the same. You just push it back in and boom. So, you know, I've had it for a couple years. If it breaks, you get a new one, but also it might still work after it breaks. Little spoon here. You can get a wooden one or a metal one, but I just recommend getting a spoon with some sort of slat in the middle here to drain liquid. I mostly use it for beans. So if I'm vegetarian, I eat a lot of beans, but if you're looking to cook a little bit healthier, eat healthier and cheaper, you're probably going to end up eating a good amount of beans. And this is good with that because these slats let all the liquid fall out. So if you scoop something but you don't want all the liquid with it, it's going to fall out, you let it drain, and then you can top it on your food. Mostly I use it for beans, but it is a helpful thing to have around. Here's just a simple peeler, you know, carrots, potatoes, anything that you might be looking to shed the skin off of. One of those. Little can opener here. Kind of a forgotten item. I've definitely can openers break a lot, and I've definitely had a broken can opener and gone to cook something that needed me to open a can and realized my can opener doesn't work. And opening a can without a can opener is really, really hard. You end up like stabbing it with weird like spoons and knives and stuff, and that ultimately just makes it really dangerous. Can openers you can get at the dollar store, but it's not going to last you very long. So again, if you can splurge, get one that maybe has more metal components to it, and yeah, then you always have it around to open your cans. Pretty optional here, little rubber spatula. Again, pretty optional. I do like it for sauces. I'll stir around, you know, scrambled eggs, things like that. So I'll use it similar to the other spatula here, but it's got this rubber bottom, and it helps scrape out all of the sauce that you're using. If you have sauce in a bowl, you have rice in a bowl, you'll be able to get all the last little bits, so you're not just sitting there scraping a whole bunch. Save you a little bit of time there. Last thing you probably want to pick up are some measuring spoons. I don't use them religiously, but a lot of recipes call for, you know, half a cup or a quarter cup, or if you're baking. Anyway, you want to be able to measure what you have going on here. Also, if you don't have like a proper ladle, this doubles as a ladle. I use it all the time as a ladle. So a cup here, measuring cups here, and sort of these smaller equivalent measuring spoons here. Similar fashion. You just want to be able to keep track of how much you're adding to certain things. And so measuring spoons help you keep track of that. But really, these few items here, mostly all the utensils, get a knife with it. These are basically all the utensils you need for a kitchen. Tupperware is here. I'm not really going to go into like glass versus plastic or like Rubbermaid or anything like that. Tupperwares are good because if you make too much food, you're going to want to store it. If you have a pepper and you only use half the pepper, you're going to want to store the pepper. Keeping them in containers like this keeps it way fresher for way longer, so you're not just putting a bowl in the fridge and having like the refrigerator, you know, do its thing to your food that's all open. Basically, climate control, texture control. You want to have some Tupperwares just to put your leftovers in. If you have no Tupperwares, my recommendation is to go to an Asian restaurant and buy something. I know that sounds weird, but go to an Asian restaurant and get takeout. It's Corona. Most places are takeout only. Get some takeout from an Asian place, and you very well will have it come in something like this or something like this. And these are microwave safe, and they're reusable. They're called deli containers if you see stuff like this. But instead of throwing these away, these work totally fine as Tupperwares. I use them basically as my Tupperwares 99% of the time. Another thing you can do, buy some hummus. Right? This is just this, but a smaller version. And these deli containers come in all sorts of different sizes. But this thing doubles it. So if you're looking at, you know, sort of use less, sort of the 3 R's, reduce, reuse, recycle, well, you can reduce and reuse by, you know, saving the things you get from the store. So if you don't have Tupperwares, go buy some hummus, go buy some Asian food, bring it back home, and hold on to them. A lot of these Tupperwares that you can get from an Asian restaurant are dishwasher safe. It'll say at the bottom, but another good reason to order out from an Asian restaurant. That's it, y'all. I just wanted to show you some of the basic items I have here that help me cook 99% of my meals. overall, it cost me about $120 to $150. No individual item costs more than about $30. I'd say the knife and the skillet are the most expensive. You don't really have to spend $50 on a cutting board or $200 on a knife. You can get by in a much cheaper fashion if you're looking to go that route. This was the first topic video of many more to come. If you have any questions about what was discussed here, if you want more clarifying marks or anything like that, feel free to leave a comment. I'm down to engage in conversation and help you out however I can.